Welcome sports fans to GenX Classic Sports, where we bring the nostalgia of our sports-filled youth into the present day. Grab your favorite retro jersey, crack open a cold one, and let's stroll down memory lane together.
All right, everybody, welcome back to GenX Classic Sports. I'm your host, Sean Enos, and I've got a special guest with me today. This is a guy that I've actually known for probably 35 years now. That's how far we go back to high school baseball. I hate to say that, but that's about what we're talking about. I just had my 35th reunion last year, so yeah, we go beyond 35 years.
Yeah.
And so anyway, ladies and gentlemen that know me, that I grew up in South Arkansas, and so did this gentleman. And as we're finding out, we actually went to the same grade school. This is Bryan Smith from El Dorado, and I grew up in Junction City, as everybody knows. And Bryan, we were just talking about before I hit record, you've got a little family in Junction City, and you actually went to grade school down there until what grade?
Man, I went to school in Junction till I was in the fourth grade.
Okay, so Bryan and I went to the same grade school, and you're class of 88, is that right?
Yes, class of 88.
And I'm class of 89. And so, yeah, I didn't realize it. I'll get a yearbook out and look it up, man. But,
Yeah.
so we overlapped. And then Bryan, even though he's a year older than me, school wise, we played each other in high school, and Bryan had a really interesting career trajectory after high school ball. And some of it I witnessed for myself, and I'm going to surprise him with those stories as we go. Maybe he's probably has no idea what I'm talking about. He played on some summer teams with dudes that I was teammates with back in the day, and so nobody has anything bad to say about Bryan Smith because I checked up on him. So nothing but good
Uh-oh.
stuff. Yeah. So Bryan, tell me, man. So you were in grade school down there with me, and then you moved up to El Dorado to the big town. And just so everybody understands, at the time, El Dorado was in the largest high school classification in the state. Back then, we only went to 4A
Right,
in
that's right.
the 80s, and that's what El Dorado was, and my hometown was more like 2A. Now there was a huge discrepancy in 4A, which is why eventually it became 7A. So Bryan, how old were you when you started playing any kind of sport, not just baseball, but what all did you play in El Dorado as a kid?
Played everything. I played baseball. I played football, basketball. Um, a lot of people don't know, but I actually received scholarship offers in all three sports
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
and ended up choosing baseball. But I played them all, man. I believe in whatever season it was, that's what I was playing.
Would you? Is it fair to say that back then that tended to be the way it was? Like you probably knew a lot of multi-sport guys, at least before high school, because I thought we were all encouraged to play, multiple sports back then. And I'll talk. Do you agree? I mean, that seemed to be the way it was around me, at least.
Yeah, man, I totally agree with that. I don't think there was too much. I don't know the term. Maybe they call it specialization, where kids were just specializing in one sport. But you know, um, even though we were 4A in El Dorado, it was still I consider it a small school, and you had guys that would play football and baseball and basketball. I mean, everybody played everything, and that's just the way that it was when we were coming up.
Yeah, I agree. In the 80s, I mean, we're definitely Gen Xers, and in the 80s, some of the coaches even coached multiple sports, and so they were more than happy to have their guys, doing multiple things. So if you played basketball as a kid, did you play at the boys club there in El Dorado?
I did. I started out at the boys club and ended up after the boys club. I went to Barton Junior High there in El Dorado and
Yeah.
near the high school. So
Okay.
I, I played basketball until my sophomore year, and then after my sophomore year, I just played football and baseball.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you next because I didn't know which sports you played the older you got in high school. So you did football and baseball all the way through, or did you drop football at some point?
No, I did. I did
O-
baseball and football all the way through.
Okay. What position did you play in football, if you don't mind me asking?
Football, I was a running back and defensive back.
I was going to say, if you were not a running back or a D back, somebody did not do their job at El Dorado on the football staff. And I'll tell
That's
everybody,
what I
I'll
did. Yeah,
I'll tell everybody why I believe that later because of what I've seen with my own two eyes. That's interesting because El Dorado, man, I go back to Carlos Gatson playing for El Dorado,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then the Razorbacks, and
Mm-hmm.
John David Tuberville being the quarterback. And there were some good athletes, obviously, in El Dorado. That was a pretty good football program. Coach, what was it, Beckelheimer?
Coach Beck. That's right.
So you
That's
played for
right.
Coach Beck, right? Okay.
That's
So I mean, I'm trying to lock in, man. It's been a while, but I'm trying to lock
right.
in, and I was hoping you were going to tell me you played football because I was going to
I
kind of
did.
be mad at Coach Beck if you didn't. All right, so I remember you playing for El Dorado. We played each other twice a year, usually non-conference. Y'all were way too big for us to be in the same conference. But having said that, y'all were one of the smaller enrollments on the 4A side in the state. I would bet that's
That's
probably
right.
why. Yeah, that's probably why you said it felt like a small school because. I mean, El Dorado wasn't as big as some of these Little Rock and Pine Bluff type schools. So y'all had a big discrepancy from the low end to the high end of 4A back then.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, matter of fact, y'all were in the conference with Pine Bluff, weren't you?
Man, that's back when they had. Well, he was a sophomore, probably I don't know, my senior year. Basil Shabazz. You remember him?
Oh, do I? Yeah. Tracy Caldwell. Tracy
Yeah.
Caldwell was that age. Played against him too.
Yeah.
Um, Literally track stars. I mean, first and foremost, those guys were track stars, and then they kind of transitioned that into doing stuff on baseball and football fields. But Shabazz was, man, it's hard to argue against him being one of the top handful of running backs that ever played in this state for high school. And that dude could pick him up and put him down, couldn't he?
Yeah. Some of them even rank him as probably one of the top two coming out of the state ever.
There's an argument to be made. I mean, that dude was. I mean, he was something else for sure. So y'all had some tough opponents. I'm all right. That's what I'm saying. There's no
We
doubt
did.
about it. And I've been telling the people that I told we were going to talk that I can remember a lot of the players on y'all's team, but y'all had a good selection of hitters for sure. But you were telling me through text. There's a picture you sent me of the two of us, and I'll share that on our YouTube version of this because it's been a while since I've seen it. But you played shortstop. When did you start playing shortstop? And I know you made a transition there at some point.
Man, I've basically, as long as I can remember, I've always played primarily shortstop and
Hmm.
third base, and I think, of course, everybody probably pitched a little bit. So um, I was infielder and a pitcher, and
Yeah.
through high school, up until my senior year, I was primarily on the infield with shortstop,
Hmm.
and I made the switch probably the middle way through my senior year. Uh,
Okay.
I started playing the outfield.
See, we probably played y'all early in the year for non-conference and then moved on from each other. And then that's when you made it. Cause I remember you as a shortstop. Now it makes complete sense that you played center or moved to center field. I totally agree with that too. But I think what's interesting is I don't care if it's El Dorado or JC, what size school you have. A lot of times, in my experience, you may disagree, and I still watch high school sports. I mean, I still go to baseball games around here and stuff. A
Hmm.
lot of times, your absolute best athlete ends up at short. There are a
That's
lot
what
of
I've heard.
small, yeah, a lot of small schools. They put that dude that can cover some ground and throw it over there, and you just see that a lot.
Yep.
Um, and I'm going to ask you. There's another question about that later as pertains to minor league ball. But so you played shortstop. That's what I was used to seeing you play. I see you had the goggles on in the picture. And so are you blind as a bat like I am? Is that what the deal
Brother, I'm,
was?
I'm I'm probably worse than you. I've actually had a cornea transplant, and
Oh,
that's kind of what derailed my baseball career. I'm
wow, man.
literally blind in my left eye.
Man, I tell you what, my left eye was my problem too, but not that bad. You have some serious stuff going on. The only reason I
Mhm.
mentioned that was not to pick on you because
No,
I played in the same goggles the very last 2 years I played. I had goggles because um I man, something about contacts and baseball just did not mix. The dirt would get in them and everything. And of course, with goggles, I would sweat so badly. It was hard to keep them from fogging up. I don't know about you, but that was my experience.
that's true. That was it.
Yeah, and so what I would do is wear the goggles batting, and I'd wear the goggles out in the outfield because there's no dirt out there, of course. But as soon as I got on base, I took the goggles off because I wanted to be able to, your peripheral vision's limited in them too, which is,
Right.
hey, you and I didn't have this technology now where they take a pair of Nikes and put a prescription lens in them, and you got these cool looking sports goggles. We're out there wearing this nasty piece of plastic across our face back in the day. Rec
Man,
spec.
oh, they used to call me Kareem.
I know I hated wearing them too, but I didn't have any choice. I couldn't see good
I
enough to.
couldn't either, man. I couldn't
I
either.
tried them. I tried them in football, and I ended up just. Since my vision was bad in one eye, like you said, I had one really bad eye compared to the other one. And in football, I could just get away with it. And if I threw an interception, I just blame it on the not wearing my goggles. Try to get
That's
away
right.
with it that
In
way.
football, it wasn't so bad because
Right.
at the time there was a guy by the name of Eric Dickerson in the NFL
That's
that had
right.
the same gargle. So I said, well, I guess if he can wear them, I can wear them too. So
That's right, but not so much in baseball. What was the guy from the Cincinnati Reds, the white guy,
Chris,
Chris something,
Sabo, Sabo.
Sabo. He,
Yeah,
he had goggles, man.
right.
He was the only one I can think of.
That's right. I remember Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so there was at least one major leaguer, but I understand the Kareem comment because I had to hear that too. So anyway, I thought that was funny, and thanks for sharing that picture because I haven't seen it in a while. And I'll put it on the YouTube version. Okay, so you're a senior, and you switched to center field, but you told me there was a reason you switched to. By the way, who was your coach? Was it Coach Daryl Smith or Darren Smith? I can't remember his first name.
Daryl Smith
Daryl
was our
Smith.
coach. Coach Smith,
He was
yeah. Well,
he
and
was that
probably our senior year, Coach Smith, um, he had left, and Jim Emerson was our coach our senior year. And
okay.
you're talking about coaches doing other things. He was an offensive line coach in football, and then he switched after football season. He went to baseball. Yeah,
He had a tough mentality for baseball then.
that's right.
I do remember him actually. Yeah, I remember Coach Smith and him now that you mentioned that. I thought he came along later. I knew he was in there, but I thought it was after you were gone. So,
Yeah, that was our
so
coach year. Yeah.
okay. So tell everybody about why you switched positions though. Somebody calls that.
So it was doing after my junior year. Um, I had been receiving a lot of letters from different clubs like the Texas Rangers, Cincinnati Reds, and Kansas City Royals. And Kansas City Royals scout actually came down. It was after my junior year, and we went through the workout. And after the workout, um, he said, "Smith, I got some good news and bad news." And he said, "What do you want first?" I said, "Well, tell me the good news." And
Mm-hmm.
he said, "You ever thought about playing professional baseball?" And I said, "Man, yeah, that's all I think about." And he said, "Well, man, I definitely believe you got a shot at playing if you uh, do a few things differently." I said, "But what's the bad news?" He said, "You'll never make it at shortstop." And man, I
Wow.
went from the highest of high to the lowest of lows, and not knowing at the time that he wasn't judging me on the guys that I had seen in Arkansas. He
Right.
was judging me on guys that he had scouted around the country.
Yeah, and he had that perspective and had
Yeah,
seen it with his own eyes.
yeah, and I didn't know that back then, and I didn't find that out until many years later, as I was watching a special, actually on ESPN, and I started, hindsight's 2020, and I started putting the time frame together, and this scout had just left Auburn University and had just signed a guy by the name of Vincent Jackson,
Yeah.
and left that guy and came down to work me out.
Yeah, that's
And for those who don't know Vincent Jackson,
I have 2 episodes on Vincent Bo Jackson.
we all call him Bo. And I've had the pleasure of visiting with Bo about the scout. His name is Ken Gonzalez.
Wow,
And
great. That's great.
Bo and I was talking about it, and many years later, as I mentioned, I looked Ken's number up, and I wanted to call him to say thank you. He was the first guy to ever tell me that I couldn't make it at shortstop. And
Right.
I called him and spoke with his wife, and he had just passed.
Oh, man.
And I didn't get to talk to him. But that's how I made the transition from shortstop to center field. He told me I could make the switch.
And your coach, luckily in high school, allowed that to happen?
He did. We didn't do it initially at the beginning of the season, but as the season progressed, the scouts were calling. They were going, "We need to see Bryan in the outfield," and he would move me to the outfield when we knew scouts were coming down. So that's
Okay.
how I moved to the outfield.
Well, now let me sneak in my story about you, because you'll find this interesting perhaps. So somewhere in all of that, before you were, I don't really remember if it was after your senior year or what. The White Sox had a tryout in Texarkana. Okay. And Mac Knight, who you were a summer teammate with, either the summer before or the summer after, I really don't remember. He told me, he said, "Hey, we're gonna go to Texarkana and do this White Sox tryout." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, I mean, it's a good experience and this and that." And I said, "Okay." And man, I want to say it was right after the baseball season ended, but I have no idea. I don't remember that at all. I just remember riding to Texarkana with him, and I said, "Well, if you're driving, I'm riding. That's fine." So we get over there, and there's a lot of smack over guys, and I saw you and some other guys that I knew from the area. So, because back then, before consolidation, there were 4 or 5 high schools around there. So there was a good representation from our county. I don't know how many El Dorado guys were there, but I know you were. And so keep in mind that nobody told us what scouts do at a major league tryout. We had no idea whatsoever. We didn't even tell our high school coach we were going. And
Wow.
therefore, we didn't have him say, "Well, here's what they do." We had no idea. So we get over there, and the first thing they said was, "All right, you're going to run the 60-yard dash." And I said, 60? Because, man, I'm a football guy, really. At heart, I was football. And I thought, well, man, I'm okay in the 40. I'm okay. But
Uh-huh.
I was not in shape for 60. And that's really what it was. That last 20 was rough. So I ended up
Right.
running it. I ran it 3 times against the same guy who ended up in just not playing ball like I didn't. But at college, we saw each other. And he was like, "Are you the guy?" And I'm like, "Are you the guy?" So we had a big laugh about it because we raced each other 3 times. We got the same time every time. Now, and then I saw you run, and Mac Knight and I were like, "Whoa, what are they doing with Bryan?" So then you ended up in the infield, and you were throwing balls across the infield, and I guess they were clocking your arm because they had kind of sent us. We had run our 40 or 60s. We had thrown from the outfield. You were still hanging around, and really it was only about 3 or 4 of y'all. I'm just telling you what I remember. You tell me
Mm-hmm.
when this is over. You tell me what I screwed up. You were throwing across the infield, and they were clearly clocking your arm across the infield. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, like 2 or 3 guys took a few cuts in the cage. Not many, but you were one of those, from what I remember. A few cuts in the cage, which apparently wasn't. That was like a cut they made at the try. I mean, there were probably 250 dudes there
Right.
from
Right.
all over Arkansas and East Texas, maybe North Louisiana. This was Texarkana, so there's a lot going. Maybe Oklahoma guys. About 3 guys got to swing the bat. And so Mac Knight and I, to entertain ourselves, because we had been dismissed already, we were just sacking up our stuff and sitting in the bleachers watching. And we were like, "Man, the White Sox are all over Smith or Bryan Smith, man. What is it?" But we did not know at the moment what you had run in the 60. And we sure didn't know what you were throwing. I mean, we played against you for like 3 years. We didn't need to be told you were a good athlete, but we didn't know the particulars. So I'm getting to the punchline. So they keep you, maybe 2 or 3 guys, and then it looked like it was just kind of down to them talking about you. And this this short young coach walks up to you, and I said, "Who's that?" And somebody said, "Well, that's Texarkana Community College's coach, because that's who was hosting the tryout. That was in their area. They were the host, I guess."
Mm-hmm.
So if you remember what I'm talking about, tell the people who that short young coach was that walked over and talked to you in front of the scouts or whatever at the end of the day, because I sat there and watched it happen, and this is a very good memory of mine. So who was that guy?
It was one of two guys.
Yeah, well, one of them has a big name that everybody would recognize it right now.
Do they recognize Van Horn?
If they like baseball and they're a Razorback fan, they do. Dave Van Horn was over there. He was the guy talking to you. He was a young Texarkana coach at the time. Am I right about all of that? He was there, right? He was talking to you.
Let me tell you how that happened. So
Okay. I'm dying to hear this, man, because I was there. I may have butchered it, but I was there.
I originally committed to Arkansas at a high school for baseball.
Which would have been Coach Norm DeBryan.
That's right. That's right. Coach DeBryan. I committed to Arkansas. What a lot of people don't remember or know, that during that time, Coach Van Horn was a grad assistant at the U of A.
Yep, he was.
And I remember him being at our state tournament. Again, hindsight 2020. I remember him being at our state tournament, and I committed to Arkansas. And man, the one thing that I've always said is I really appreciate Coach DeBryan and Coach Doug Clark. They were always up front with me, and it was I spoke primarily with Coach Clark, and he said, "Look, Bryan, we still." I actually tore my hamstring.
Oh,
senior year, and he was like, "We still want you up here, but I'm going to be honest with you. We've got a guy by the name of Dunn Thomas. I think Dunn was all conference, and he said, look, he's coming back, and he said, we're either going to redshirt you, or if we don't redshirt you, you're not going to play a whole lot." And man, I thought about that, and I was like, man, I really don't want to sit on the bench. And it actually came down between Arkansas and Oklahoma State during that time. And Oklahoma State had some guy. I remember Robin Ventura and Pete Incaviglia.
Oh, yeah.
All those guys were there when I was coming out of high school, and it came down to them. And I chose Arkansas. Well, once he said that he was going to redshirt me or I wasn't going to play. And then I found out, and I didn't know this at the time, if you go D1, you have to stay 3 years.
Yeah, back then.
And I was like, man, I really can't afford to stay 3 years, because at that time, my girlfriend was pregnant. I had a baby coming. I knew I had the opportunity to play professional baseball, and I was disappointed that I didn't get drafted out of high school. Maybe it was because I tore my hamstring. But long story short, they said, I tell you what, if you're not going to come here, will you go to Texarkana? And I knew nothing about Texarkana. And so they set that up. And so that's how I probably ended up over at that White Sox camp that day, because I was there working out and trying to meet everybody. So that's how I ended up over there that day. They sent me over there.
Well, for whatever reason, there was probably, man, I hate to throw names out when I'm not sure, but I'm almost positive there were a couple of your teammates there as well, maybe 4 or 5 of them. Seemed like there was a lot of people I knew there, meaning half a dozen or so. Smackover, El Dorado.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said, and I don't know if this is true, but I finally watched you run, and I told Mac Knight, I said, dude, Bryan Smith can fly. I mean, I knew you were fast, but I said, Bryan Smith can fly. And somebody said in the 60 that day, you ran a 6.5. Is that right?
I ran
Does that sound right?
A 6.46.
Okay. Well, sub 6.5, which is smoking fast. And for those listening who wonder, don't wonder anymore. That's really fast. That's all you need to know. I don't know. Did they clock your arm velocity and tell you what it was that day, or did you
They did not. Okay. If they clocked it, they didn't tell me what it was.
Okay. I mean, I saw you throwing. So in my mind, you were throwing across the infield, but you could have been hitting the cutoff man from the outfield. I have no idea, but
Hmm.
I know that word got back that it was a 6'5", and you're saying sub 6'5", which is I can believe it because I saw it with my own two eyes. So I was like, man. So we're up there in the stands going, well, Bryan Smith just got a job today. Like that's Texarkana's coaches talk. See, we didn't know all this other was going on with Arkansas or whatever. We're just basing this off what we're seeing with our own two eyes. And I'm like, I know when a guy is getting attention from a coach by the body language they're showing. This Dave Van Horn, and I didn't know that's who it was at the time, but I did later on. I said, this coach is talking to Bryan Smith about coming to college here. You guys can believe what you want. Because, it's a conflict of interest with the pros and the college, but
Right.
both there, they both want you basically if you're a talent like that. And so we just thought it was hilarious because we're like, we just watched Bryan Smith either get drafted or at the worst, he's about to be playing at Texarkana next year at the bare minimum. So that was what Mac Knight and I saw, and so it sounds like those stories kind of match up. So I'm not crazy, right?
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And I was just it took a while, but I really figured out who Van Horn was when he got Nebraska into the College World Series before he came to Arkansas. I did the old, Wikipedia thing or whatever, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that has to be who. And I looked, yep, saw that Texarkana Community College on there, and I'm like, yep, totally makes sense now. But I did not know that's why you kind of had a connection with him, is because of all that happened at Arkansas. That is really fascinating. So going back to something you said earlier, because timeline wise, we're getting kind of to the end of your high school career. You actually had offers for football, basketball, baseball that you could have sorted through, right? For
Right.
college, for college.
That's correct.
All right. And so you do what but is it safe to say you wanted baseball beyond the other two?
That's right. Because realistically, I knew that I really didn't have a chance to go any further than college in basketball. And football, I was already coming off a torn hamstring
Right.
my senior year. So I'm thinking, all right, injury wise, it's going to be a whole lot better if I choose baseball. So that's what I did.
Well, we were lucky where I played. We had a mentor named Vince Holyfield that worked with the outfielders every offseason. And physically, you always reminded me of him. Y'all had similar builds and speed and so forth. You reminded me a lot of Vince, and that's pretty high praise because dude was definitely he was my hero as a kid, and then I got to work with him when he coached. He was kind of a volunteer coach until spring training every year. He'd come hit with us and work out with us and coach outfield, and I love that guy. And you reminded me a lot of him physically. Y'all could have passed for brothers probably back
No,
in.
Vince well. We worked
Do
out
you?
together.
Okay, all
We
right,
did. Mm.
all right. Well, he was a cool dude, and y'all
Yep.
did remind me of each other. So when Van Horn had that discussion with you or whatever that day, did that lock in Texarkana for you instantly, or did you still have other things to mull over, or were you even wondering if you were going to get drafted out of high school? Was that after the draft? Because I'm curious how that all went down with
No,
the.
that's or I really I thought that I was either going to be drafted by the Cincinnati Reds, um, the Chicago White Sox, or the Kansas City Royals. And the reason I say those three is because those guys started sending me. I was getting letters all the time from them starting my junior year in high school. And
Mhm.
those are the guys that were coming down during the games, and they would always tell me when they're coming down. They would tell me what they wanted to see or try to see, and so I thought it would be one of those three. And when I didn't get drafted out of high school, even though I knew my hamstring was torn, it was disappointing.
Well, what's interesting is I've known people my age that have kids that have gotten drafted or whatever over the years. And one of the things I find most interesting is that it seems like the teams that show you the most interest leading up to the Major League Baseball draft end up not being the team that drafts you almost every time.
You're
I've
absolutely right.
I've had people tell me, man, the Royals were all over me. I mean, I
Yeah.
talk to that scout every day. Of course, now it's text and emails and this and that and social media. and then I got drafted by the Brewers. What happened? And so that sounds like a pretty normal experience to me based on the people I've talked to.
Well, that's what it was, man. The Astros actually came out of nowhere, and that was after my freshman year at Texarkana. I got an invite from them to come to a pre-draft workout, and they had about 20 or 30 of us down at the Astrodome at the time, and that's where they came into play. But before that, I thought it was one of the other three teams for sure.
Yeah. So let me ask you about going to Texarkana then out of El Dorado High School. So you get over there for Van Horn. Um, I'm always curious from the playing perspective, the technical aspects of this. So what kind of adjustments did you have to make to the pitching and to the coaching and to the conditioning and all those types? I mean, just walk us normal folks through what kind of mental and emotional and whatever adjustments. Because I mean, you were, what is that, 2.5 hours from El Dorado, something like that, 2 hours,
Yeah,
whatever, hour and a half. So you're
right,
you're away from home
right.
and you're playing for what turns out to be a pretty demanding coach, I'm sure. Young coach, all fired up about everything, and you're adjusting to all aspects of playing JUCO ball now. So, what kind of adjustments did you, or was it? I mean, was the pitching better than high school, but you adjusted okay, or walk us through some of that. I'm really curious about that.
I think the pitching was okay. You of course, and similarity wise, you played with Greg Glover,
Yes.
and and so Greg was probably throwing what 90s, low 90s.
Yeah.
We would see that consistently in JUCO. That's something that I had to get used to seeing every day. You in
Right.
high school you every so often, but even in JUCO, you're probably playing against somebody who was one of the better players on their high school teams. So had to make that adjustment, and then just playing baseball year round. I'm used to playing football and basketball. Now I'm focusing on baseball, and
Right.
say the least, Coach Van Horn was demanding. Especially with
Yeah.
the offseason fall ball, and that's something that I had to make an adjustment to. But believe me when I tell you, it was all worth it.
Yeah, so y'all probably played what, 30 games in the fall easily, something like that. And then
Yeah, we probably played more, man. We probably played closer to
50.
45 or 50, and
Okay.
um, traveling to all over the state, and
Yeah.
even playing the U of A. Fall ball. We had a pretty tough schedule.
I found that interesting that when JJ Hill played over there, which I guess was the following year, maybe after you left and got drafted, JJ played over there and he came to SAU for fall ball. And I didn't realize at the time, but I do now, that for fall ball, you play up and down all kinds of different levels. You just kind of, you play whoever's the bus ride away, more or less, right? Which would explain y'all going up to Fayetteville and all that kind of stuff.
So if you were at SAU, so JJ came over when I was a sophomore, so we played together one year.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I saw you then because
Hmm.
y'all played fall ball at SAU, and a
That's
couple
right.
of JJ's teammates and I was in college there, so it was easy for me. But another guy or two went with me, and we went over there and watched y'all play.
So
Um,
you would have played uh, I think Eric was over there, right? Was Eric there when you were there? Eric Stone?
yeah, he must have been. I think we were was he in your class or 89?
He
Because I'm
was. He was
89.
in my class. Yeah.
Yeah, he would have been over there. Yeah, he would have been over there. Yeah. So, so as you said earlier, this is kind of what I thought you were going to say. So when you play high school ball at any level, you're going to run into a guy every so many games throwing good heat. Now you're at
Hmm.
Texarkana and their whole lineup's throwing much better heat. So you're getting every number one guy on his staff from high school that's not D1 or didn't get drafted or whatever. That's who you're facing. So the pitching a little more miles per hour than you normally get consistently. What about the
That's right.
breaking stuff? Did you see guys with unbelievable breaking stuff, or was it just kind of like, not really?
Not really. It was more when the guys we were seeing, a majority of them could throw hard,
Yeah.
but maybe the control wise, it wasn't just there.
Yeah.
But they could bring it though, and if they brought it, they were bringing it.
Yeah. And I would imagine if they could, they wouldn't have been playing JUCO ball. They'd already be gone, or they were probably perfecting their craft. That's probably a safe way to
You're
say it.
right in saying that. That's right. That's
Now,
right.
when you were there, so you were fast, and were you the fastest guy at Texarkana when you were there? Would you think?
I was.
And so you were center field from day one.
I was center field from day one. I remember. I don't know if it's because coach thought that I wasn't always giving it my all, but doing conditioning drills, we ran what's called poles, and
Mm-hmm.
it's from foul line to foul line.
Yep.
And whichever group that I was in, he would make me count to 5 before I could leave after they had left, and I had to beat them. And if I didn't, that was extra for me. So
That's crazy.
I laugh about that now, but yeah, I was center field from day one for sure. Yeah.
You know what? You're right. And I'm like I said, I'm a sports nerd. I pay attention to all this stuff. I used to go to every college and pro game that I could after high school and college just to see all this. But you were what I would call a glider. You didn't look like you were putting forth a ton of effort, and that's what I noticed at Texarkana that day. That it was probably deceptive how fast you were actually running, and something makes me wonder if Van Horn thought you were holding out and was punishing you for something you weren't doing, because you did have you had an easy stride though.
It's funny you say that because I remember him asking me once. He was like, "Do you ever put forth a full effort?" And I'm like, "Man, you don't understand. I'm all out. That's all I got."
But some people like the old quarterback at Arkansas, Matt Jones. You have no idea that dude's running that fast until you hear the time with the way their stride looks or whatever. And to me, you were an easy strider, so it didn't look like you were struggling at all. And so I'm sure that may have drove a guy like Van Horn crazy. He might have thought you were
Yeah,
holding out on him.
yeah.
So tell me about what kind of like were y'all playing a lot of small ball then? Was he bunting guys over and having you steal a lot of bases and that kind of thing, or?
You know what? We played a little small ball, but we actually had a pretty good hitting team. So he would let us swing away quite a bit.
Yeah.
As far as the running team, he always gave me the green light.
Yeah.
Um, Whenever I wanted to run, and if for some reason he didn't want me to run, he would let me know. But I pretty much had the green light to take off whenever I wanted.
Did Now let me ask you this. So in high school, did you hit a lot of home run? I mean, you showed me some stats on Legion ball, and I'll be honest, I was surprised you hit that many home runs in Legion ball. Did you hit a lot of home runs in high school?
I didn't. I don't think I ever had over four or five in high
So,
school.
so you had a Legion season, and I mean, y'all played like 50 games or something, and you had 9 home runs, which was like second, I think, on the team. So, how
Yeah.
about Texarkana? I always ask fast guys this question, okay? Because
Hmm.
this was something that Bolin and I had a discussion about when I played for him, and that is his thing was if you're my fast guy or guys, you're going to hit that ball level and you're going to hit it down and you're going to hit those line drives and you're going to run. So
Yep.
he kind of talked that power swing out of you. I'm not saying he preached be a slap hitter, but I mean, some people would say that, but he was way more concerned about it. Hit that level shot, get it in the gap, get it up the middle and run. And then there were other guys on the team that could hit the long ball. So did you, just by playing at Texarkana, did you just happen to hit some home runs and that wasn't part of the plan, or did Van Horn let you do some of that, or how did he see you as part of the offense?
In high school in Legion, I was a leadoff hitter.
Yeah, well, you should have
I,
been
I, I've always been the leadoff hitter.
because you're the
And,
fastest thing on the field.
yeah, and for whatever reason, um, Van Horn moves me to the 5 slot,
Wow,
and
really?
and I end up my sophomore year. I ended up hitting close to 350. I think I had 9 or 10 home runs, and for the longest, I was leading the nation in RBIs. I think I ended up with close to 70 RBIs.
That's awesome.
Um, but I don't think I was your your prototype of power hitter at all. Because
That,
I know that the scouts never saw me that way.
that's really interesting though, that you went from that he put you in the 5 hole with your speed and all. That's really, well, hey, whatever. I mean, that's really interesting. And then you still hit that many home runs. I mean, was he aggressive when you got, so you say you had the green light, but and he was fine with that? Because I'm sure you were very careful about what you did. You're not going to do dumb things on the bases,
Right.
I'm sure.
No,
Yeah.
he was aggressive, man. He was aggressive. He wanted us to be aggressive. Um, I I learned a lot from him, and when I say that, especially in baseball, and as you know, sometimes it's the little things um, that you have to pick up on. And I remember a particular game. Um, they changed pitchers right before I was getting ready to step into the batter's box. And before I got in, he called me down. He was coaching third base, and he said, "Look," he said, "I've been watching this guy warm up." And he said, "I haven't seen him throw any off speed pitches, a slider, curveball, anything. All he's been throwing is fastballs." He said, "So the first pitch, if it's there, I want you swinging." Sure enough, the guy grooved it and I hit it over the wall. And it's the little things like that that I never thought about, that he was teaching us, that you have to watch for those little things. And that's the type of guy that he is. And he's always been that way. So he was
I,
aggressive.
I think baseball is a great sport for dudes that are into attention to detail, for sure. I mean,
Yes.
whether you're coaching or playing, even reading a pitcher, knowing when to steal, just the little subtle movements where you finally found it. You're guaranteed he's throwing it to the plate and you can steal. All those little victories like that, I think, add up over a game and a season and a career. So it's really interesting that he told you that, because that sounds like the kind of guy he would be, to me at least.
I'll tell you a quick story. So this is before my sophomore year. Myself and another guy, we had made a college all-star game, and he was taking us to this college all-star game. It was in Blinn, Texas, I believe. And we were having a conversation during the car ride down, and he was kind of asking us, what do you guys want to do with your life? Are you going to go to Arkansas after you leave here? Or are you going to sign? What are you going to do? And, I'm telling him, "Coach, it all depends on where I'm drafted, what they offer." He was just asking us about life.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, man, what do you want to do? What are you going to do?" And he said, "Smith, I tell you, one day I'm going to be the coach at the University of Arkansas." And man, this is in 1990.
Wow.
And so when I see him now, I remind him, I said, "Man, you had a vision back then. You knew what you wanted." And he
Yeah.
did. And he's always been detailed like that. So,
Yeah, he sounds like that kind of guy for sure. And that's what I think, great coaches probably do that, especially in baseball to me. Bolin was a lot like that. Bolin, there's no doubt. And his son will tell you that he got offers to coach college and he just wasn't interested. I'm
really,
not saying University of Texas, but I know like Henderson and OBU and UCA, those type schools bugged him a lot about coaching and he just, I don't know why, but he just wasn't, basically he wasn't interested, but but my point is he had a mind like that. He would watch
hmm
the guy warming up. When you're in high school and the new pitcher comes in, they tell you to watch what he's doing. You're over there pulling your socks up and
that's right.
you're not paying attention to that dude. You're just not. And, he's over there watching everything going on. And so that's the kind of mind that you just have to coach at that level. I'm convinced.
That's
And if
right.
a little bit of it rubs off on a few players, the team's better for it, right?
You're right about that, man.
All right, everybody, that's a good logical place right there to stop this episode, and we'll pick back up in a couple of weeks, and we'll hear more from Bryan Smith about his experiences in professional baseball. And we hope you tune back in a couple of weeks and listen. And if you like what we do here, please hit like, hit subscribe, give us a thumbs up, whatever options you have on whatever streaming service you use. And as always, we appreciate you listening and thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us on GenX Classic Sports, where nostalgia meets the thrill of the game. Tune in next time for more insightful discussions and memorable moments, brought to you by Pine Street Productions. Until then, stay passionate about sports and keep the memories alive.